What would happen to you if a cop leaned into your window tonight and asked, "Where are you headed?" Most drivers answer that question in 3 seconds flat. And that single answer is legal gold for the officer because it lets him turn a 2-minute ticket stop into a 40-minute criminal investigation. Hit subscribe right now because what I'm about to teach you could be the difference between driving away and being booked into a county jail before sunrise. Cops are trained to ask that question in a friendly way, and the wrong answer gives them the reason to keep you right where you are. Here's what you're about to learn. The exact 9 words you say when a cop asks where you are going. The Supreme Court case that made this question optional instead of required. The body cam footage that shows an officer letting a driver leave in under 2 minutes after hearing these words, and the one-sentence drivers keep repeating that gets them searched every single time. Let me show you exactly how cops train this question. They are taught to ask it during the first 60 seconds of contact. The tone is casual. The officer often says it while smiling, almost like he is making small talk. Your brain wants to keep the peace, so you answer honestly. The problem is, your honest answer becomes evidence. If you say you are coming from a bar, the officer has reason to suspect drinking and driving. If you say you are headed to a friend's house 2 hours away, he has reason to think you might be transporting something. Once he has your destination, he has a reason to keep you parked until he is satisfied. And every minute you sit there is another minute the officer can run your name, call for backup, peer through your window, and search for probable cause. Here's the reality. Cops do not need that answer. The traffic stop is legal because of a broken tail light, not because of your travel plans. The Supreme Court made this clear in Rodriguez versus United States in 2015. The court said officers cannot extend a stop just to run a dog sniff or ask more questions unless they have real reasonable suspicion of a crime. So the moment you answer about your destination, you create the suspicion they needed. Without your answer, they often have nothing to work with. The stop is supposed to end as soon as your documents check out and your tail light is confirmed broken. Most people have no idea that simply staying quiet on this question does not violate any law. You still have to hand over your license, registration, and proof of insurance. That part is mandatory in every state in the country, but a normal conversation about your life, your plans, your passengers, and your destination is completely optional. Knowing that one fact changes everything about how a stop plays out. Cops cannot arrest you for politely declining to chat. They cannot write you an extra ticket for not sharing your weekend plans. They cannot legally hold you longer because you decided to keep your mouth shut on a question you were never required to answer in the first place. Tactic 1 is the destination question itself. Bad way, most drivers blurt out their plan. "Where are you headed, officer?" "Just driving home from work." Then the officer says thanks and asks another 10 questions to keep you parked while he builds a picture of you. That has nothing to do with your tail light. Good way, smart drivers say the same line every time. You look at the officer and calmly say this: "Officer, I would rather not answer any questions," those exact 7 words. Then you hand over your documents and stay quiet. No attitude, no anger, just a calm, polite refusal that gives the officer absolutely nothing to write in his report. Watch what happens. The officer writes the ticket or gives you a warning and sends you on your way in under 2 minutes. He does not have the answer he needed to justify keeping you. He cannot pull you out of the car without a real reason. He cannot run a dog sniff around your vehicle without a reason. He basically loses his best tool, which is your own mouth. This is 100% legal. The Supreme Court ruled in Berghuis versus Thompkins in 2010 that you must invoke your right to silence out loud for it to count, and stating you would rather not answer counts as a clear invocation. Defense attorneys use this exact line in court to throw out cases every year, especially when the officer later claims the driver was acting suspicious or evasive. Have you ever been asked where you were going during a traffic stop? Drop a comment below telling me what you said, because most of you have never even thought about this question before, and your honest answer from a stop 2 years ago might be sitting in some officer's report right now, just waiting to be used against you the next time you get pulled over. Tactic 2 is what you say when the officer gets pushy. He will not stop just because you went quiet once. He might say something like, "Come on man, just tell me where are you coming from." He might say, "I am just trying to help you out." He might say it will be easier if you just answer. He might even act friendly and offer to let you off with a warning if you just admit where you have been. Every one of these is a pressure tactic, and every one of them is designed to make you break. Listen closely because this is critical. The pushback itself is actually a clue. The officer only pushes because he needs something you have not yet given him. The minute he stops pushing, the stop starts sending. So your second line is a follow-up move, not a new answer. Here is what you say. Officer, I have nothing else to say. Am I being detained or am I free to leave? Those two sentences together are extremely powerful. The first sentence locks you in. The second sentence forces the officer to either let you go or admit he is holding you for a real criminal reason. Let me show you exactly how the law backs this up. In Terry versus Ohio in 1968, the Supreme Court ruled that an officer can only briefly detain you if he has reasonable suspicion of a crime. The moment your documents check out and there is no visible crime, the detention is supposed to end. So when you ask if you are being detained or free to leave, you are forcing the officer to admit out loud that you are free to go. Most officers will mumble something and back away at that point because they have no case. If he says you are being detained, he is now on record saying he has reasonable suspicion, and that gives your attorney something to attack in court if the suspicion later turns out to be made up. Bad way, the nervous driver keeps answering more and more questions. Yeah, I am coming from my cousin's house. He lives over on Maple. We were just hanging out watching the game. Now the officer has your relative's address, your activity, and 10 extra minutes of small talk to extend the stop and build a profile that will end up in his report. Good way, the prepared driver says the line once and then locks up. Officer, I am not answering anymore questions. Am I being detained or am I free to leave? The officer realizes he has nothing and walks back to his cruiser. This is 100% legal. Legal experts agree this is your strongest protection when an officer will not take no for an answer the first time. Tactic 3 is the consent trap. After a couple of rounds of questions, the officer might say something like, "You do not mind if I take a quick look in your trunk, do you?" He might say, "It is easier if you just pop it open so we can clear this up." He might even say, "It would really help me out and it will only take a second." He might claim he smells something or saw something suspicious through the window. Here's the trick they don't want you knowing. The second you say yes to any of those questions, the entire traffic stop changes from a ticket into a search. Under Schneckloth versus Bustamonte in 1973, consent to a search has to be voluntary, but the moment you give it, the officer does not need a warrant and does not need probable cause. He can open every bag, every box, every cooler in your trunk. He can look through your glove box and under your seats. And if he finds anything, even something a friend left behind 3 months ago, even residue, even a pipe, even a receipt from somewhere embarrassing, you are facing charges that follow you for the rest of your life. Your exact line goes like this: Officer, I do not consent to any searches. I am exercising my Fourth Amendment rights. That sentence is the magic shield. Say it once, say it early, and say it in the same calm tone you would use to order coffee at a drive-thru. Police academies train officers that once a driver refuses consent, their hands are tied without a warrant or probable cause. Former police officers have confirmed this works because they know they cannot search without one of those two things, and a busted brake light is not probable cause for anything. Bad way, the driver smiles and says, "Sure, go ahead, I got nothing to hide." Then the officer opens the trunk, finds a gym bag with residue a friend forgot last month, and arrests the driver on the spot even though it belonged to a stranger. Good way, the prepared driver says, "Officer, I do not consent to any searches." The officer shrugs, writes the ticket, and sends the driver home free. That single sentence ended the entire investigation faster than anything else could have. Most viewers already clicked away by now. If you are still here, you are already smarter than about 90% of drivers on the road. Drop a comment saying, "I am still here so I know who is serious about learning this stuff." I read every single one, and if you want to add extra credit, tell me which tactic you already knew about before today. Tactic 4 is the recording move. Pull out your phone the moment the lights come on behind you. Set it to record video as soon as you are safely parked. Put it somewhere visible on your dashboard where the officer can see it. Do not be sneaky about it, but do not ask permission either. Recording an officer in public is legal in almost every state, and the smartest officers know the moment the camera is running. I have analyzed over 200 body cam videos and dozens of dash cam clips. Every single time the driver had independent video evidence of the stop, the officer behaved more carefully, kept the stop shorter, and the case fell apart faster when it ever went to court. Your exact line when the officer asks why you are recording is this: "Officer, I am recording this interaction for both of our protection." Those 11 words. You are not hiding anything. You are creating a record that protects both of you equally. If the officer escalates, you have proof. If the officer lies in his report, you have proof. If the case goes to court, your attorney gets a gift-wrapped piece of evidence that often forces the prosecutor to drop the case before it even reaches a jury. Defense attorneys use this exact tactic in court to win motions and dismiss charges every single week in courthouses across the country. Now let me show you how the legal backbone actually works. All four cases fit together. In Terry versus Ohio, the court said officers can briefly detain you only if they have reasonable suspicion tied to a real crime. In Rodriguez versus United States, the court said officers cannot extend a stop past the time it takes to handle the original traffic issue, unless new reasonable suspicion pops up during the stop legally. In Schneckloth versus Bustamonte, the court said consent is the master key to your car, but consent has to be clear and voluntary, which means a driver can refuse at any time. In Berghuis versus Thompkins, the court said silence does not count, so you actually have to speak up and say you are not answering questions. For the refusal to hold up later, put those four cases together and you have a complete wall around your vehicle. The officer needs a warrant or probable cause to get past it, and your polite refusal strips away every shortcut he was hoping to use. Here's the reality one more time so it sticks. Cops are not the enemy, most of them are doing a hard job the right way, but they are also trained to extract information, and your mouth is the easiest source they have. The minute you learn to use these four phrases, you have leveled the playing field. You still respect the officer, you still hand over your documents, you still keep your hands visible, you just stop handing over your rights for free and start forcing the officer to do his job the legal way. Picture a real traffic stop from start to finish. It is 11 at night. You are driving home from a long shift at work. A cop flips his lights on behind you for a busted brake light. You pull over, park, roll down your window, and put your hands on the wheel. The officer walks up and says, "Hi, where are you headed tonight?" "Bad way," the tired driver answers honestly. "Just heading home from work." Nice and simple, right? Wrong. The officer now has a reason to keep you there as long as he wants. He asks if you had anything to drink. He asks where you work. He asks who was in the car with you tonight. He peers inside looking for beer cans or fast food wrappers. He calls for backup. He asks to search. He writes a longer report. What should have been a 5-minute fix-it ticket turns into a 45-minute interrogation that ends with a patted-down driver and an empty trunk search. Good way. The prepared driver uses the same for tactics in order without breaking composure. You hand over your license, registration, and insurance. The officer asks where you are headed. You say, "Officer, I would rather not answer any questions." The officer pushes once. You say, "Officer, I am not answering any more questions. Am I being detained or am I free to leave?" The officer asks to look in the trunk. You say, "Officer, I do not consent to any searches." You have your phone recording the whole time sitting on your dashboard. The officer writes you a fix-it ticket and walks away. In under 3 minutes. Same stop, same broken light, same officer, two completely different outcomes based on what came out of your mouth. Next week I am dropping the full video on what to say when an officer claims he smells marijuana in your car. That single claim is the #1 reason drivers get searched today, and it almost always leads to an arrest even when there is nothing actually illegal in the car. Subscribe right now because that one drops in 3 days and it gets people arrested every single day in cities big and small. Hit the notification bell too so you do not miss it, and tell a friend who drives a lot. Quick recap before we wrap. 1. You do not have to answer where you are headed. 2. When an officer pushes, you ask if you are being detained or free to leave. 3. You never consent to a search of your car. 4. You record the whole thing for your protection. 4 lines. 1 for each tactic. Memorize them tonight and you carry a legal shield in your pocket for life. Hit subscribe so you catch that marijuana smell video next week. Smash like if this just saved you from a future arrest or a wasted ticket fight. Drop a comment telling me which tactic you are going to use first the next time you get pulled over, and share this with one person you love because the next stop could be theirs. Stay safe out there.